no one's even asked about it, no one has even mentioned it, looked at it, anything else. And I take that 2% and I've been donating it to the Tourism, Recreation, Hospitality Council. But my renters, no one's even said anything. And I say it separate, I say TOT and fees.
Yeah, and legally, this has to be a separate assessment. It's, you know, your TIBD, if you've got that $25 resort fee that a lot of people started charging, this is a separate line item that's on the folio that you charge. And what you just said, Cece, is pretty much what we've heard across the state. Every once in a while, you might have somebody complain if they don't want to pay their $4 assessment, which is, you know, anywhere between $1 and $4. It's typically very small. The hotel has the opportunity to credit them and just pay out of pocket. It's not, we're not talking about a $1,000 assessment or a $100 assessment for one person that's staying for a couple nights. Let's see, one question was asked, oh, will it apply to only stays that are subject to TOT or also greater than 30-day stays? As I mentioned, I'll mention this again, keep it as administratively as simple as possible. So we align it with TOT, and that also aligns with typically long-term stays over 30 days don't get assessed TOT.
That's correct, okay.
So we would likely not assess the tourism district fund, tourism assessment either. Also, sometimes we don't assess government stays either. Like if you have, say you had a fire, for example, and firefighters are coming in to fight a fire, they're like, I got 85 bucks and this is all I'm paying. They're not here because you did some great promotion to bring them in. They're here because they're fighting the fire. So there's no benefit of them paying that assessment. So you wouldn't typically charge those type of things. So that's something we work with the steering committee on what actually makes sense for the assessment structure.
And then campgrounds pay TOT as well too.
Going back to your timeline and formation of all this and the marketing. So once you've been approved, you said as soon as like April or something in your timeline, how does then, as an advertising agency myself, if I was one of the people or starting to market this, when do those dollars trigger for us to start giving messages out or whoever's going to be doing something?
Great question. Is your guys' TOT collection quarterly or monthly? So the nice thing about starting April 1st is you're starting the new quarter. So you probably have to collect all of that second quarter, and then you probably wouldn't see money until the third quarter. There's the possibility you can work out with the county that you start collections. They might consider doing something special for you. Otherwise, I'd align it with TOT to keep it simple. But that's typically what you would see. But during that time, even if you guys don't have money in the bank, there's no reason that the board of directors couldn't start meeting, generating ideas, going out to RFP, you know.
What's our
Request for proposal. So bring
Because
out.
there's that time frame between getting those monies, you know, locking in an agency, deciding upon what those messages are going to be, and so there's a huge frame, and then, you know, executing the message, what are the vehicles, and so that's a big part of even getting this out.
Yeah, absolutely. Concord, I was shocked. Well, and then this, yeah, that 8 months is just for formation. That's, you guys could take a year to figure out what you guys want to do with your money, that's fine. Concord, they pulled the trigger so incredibly fast. Before we were even done with our first official board meeting, they already had a draft RFP written that they were going to send out because they were so excited about this. They got a firm, you know, you guys can move it as quickly or as slowly as you need to. One of the things you might have difficulty doing the first year is spending all your money, just because it's just so new, and that's okay. You don't have to spend all the dollars the first year. You can have a healthy contingency fund so that when opportunities do present themselves, so that you can jump.
Are the board members paid?
No.
Okay. And then, is there any place where this is like not worked? And are there areas where this has been proposed that either it didn't work or, because it sounds,
It's rescinded.
you know, maybe they didn't buy into the 50%? I mean, are there case
So,
studies of that?
I'll tell you this, so out of all of the tourism districts, tourism improvement districts in California that have formed, only one has gone away. And the reason it went away is because the money that was raised by the lodging partners went to the Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber of Commerce probably didn't do the right, good enough job of putting heads in beds and communicating with the lodging partners of how they were spending their money. So the lodging partners that were collecting the assessment, they ultimately went through that majority protest and dissolved the district. But now
But they didn't re-pick it back up, or did they do?
that's what they're doing right now, is they're getting back together to reform with a different management structure. So when I talk about forming this owners association, I'll be honest with you, best practices form a new, clean nonprofit that hasn't been dirtied by the history of the county, and get board members that really represent the entire lodging property, small, medium, large, vacation rentals, representation from every part of the county. So you start fresh.
I'm sorry, your board members are lodging owners.
The folks that are collecting the assessment, yes.
Are lodging.
You guys also have the opportunity, if you want to open it up, if maybe you have somebody from the county you'd like to sit on the board because they have a really keen tourism sense, so you want to keep them close in the conversation. There's an option to put maybe a retail representative to kind of represent the voice of maybe some retail in the area. Maybe you've got a executive director from a chamber of commerce that you guys feel very passionate about, that knows tourism and can make good recommendations. There could be a seat on the board too. Otherwise, you can bring folks in as non-voting board members, something like an advisor, just so they can be in the room, they can answer questions, but they don't have any voting power.
How about committees too? Wouldn't that be a good idea to have committees? Maybe
Absolutely.
a retail committee or a, yeah.
Absolutely. You guys have the opportunity to form any type of, if you form a standing committee, the one that maybe meets quarterly or every month, there are also a committee that's required to follow Brown Act and Public Records Act. So there's, no closed door conversations about how we're going to do this, but typically with those committees, they come up with a good plan, they make a recommendation to the board, and the board ultimately votes on how the money is allocated.
And then you said those, that have those committees, that's like where some of the ideas would be solicited to, I need money for this event, or I have this idea.
Yeah, and that committee
But
can
it
also.
doesn't have to be that way, that's just how.
No, it
some
doesn't.
people-
It doesn't have to at all. And that committee can also be the idea committee. But they're like, we came up with this crazy idea to bring this event in, and the board's like, yeah, we like it. Go scope that out and see if it can work. And so that committee can go be that group that kind of gets RFPs, gets information, kind of does the research, and then brings it back to the board.
Or the website committee, or whatever.
Absolutely, technology committee, whatever you need to keep that organization running. Who will have the purse strings? That board. The board has full say. Money from this that's collected cannot be diverted to government programs. The county cannot take this money for anything. It is money that's directed to tourism promotion. Let's see. Somebody asked the question, what are the unintended consequences? Less money to spend in the local economy. This is about bringing money to the local economy. You guys saw the numbers in the report. These districts are incredibly successful. You guys have full control of funds, and this is what's fueling tourism marketing in California right now. So what I will tell you is we have a website. It's called tourismimprovementdistrict.com. We try to do a good job putting all the articles on this website that we hear from successes of tourism improvement districts. The interesting things about these is a lot of times you hear about great programs and things that happen, but you don't know they're associated to a tourism improvement district because it's this behind-the-scenes funding source. So when you hear about, San Francisco Travels had this phenomenal year, it's because they're funded and they've got that stable funding source to the tourism marketing district. So if we find those articles, we try to get them on this website so that you can see what districts around the state, and actually the United States, are doing. We also have an interactive map that you can go to on our website that you can actually click on the different tourism improvement districts, and then if you click on San Diego, it pops up, name of the district, what the assessment is, how much money it raises. So it's that map, but it's interactive online, so you can actually look at all the different tourism improvement districts. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here, I can answer any questions. If there's a question you have that you want to ask publicly, we can move to the side, and I'm happy to answer that as well.
Can you pull up what web browser you had?
Okay.
No, just go. This is, if anybody wants to share this presentation, it's right there on the side. FRC hosts TIBD information session. This will take you right to that PowerPoint you just saw if you want to share.
Yeah, and if, please sign in with your spreadsheet with that, and I will be sure you can email everybody after this as well.
Is there anybody that hasn't signed this?
So Vernon,
Yeah.
on your TIBD.com site, when you go to the different counties that develop TIBD program, in that series of links, is there a link to their bylaws and what they use, forms and stuff?
No.
But we can probably get them.
Yeah, we have drafted bylaws and done a bunch of work for organizations, but we're technically a law firm, so we can't release that information. But it is just as easy for you to go to other organizations and get that information. If you guys, once you get into operations, if you're looking for to talk to other tourism improvement districts, there's 85 of these districts, and a lot of them have executive directors and, very qualified staff that can answer questions. One of my favorite guys, he runs the Tourism Improvement District in Fairfield. He actually comes from a lodging background, so he has not only the, tourism and how to promote an area, but he gets the operations side. He's a great guy to talk to as well. The cool thing about these districts is it gives you the opportunity to really network and spend time with other destinations that are trying to do the same thing. There's a statewide organization called Cal Travel. They recently just had their annual Cal Travel Summit. It was in LA, I believe, and it's the statewide conference for tourism marketing folks. And if this district wanted to pay for a member of the board of directors or a program coordinator or the board chair to go and network and sit in on these conferences, you guys can do that. So there's a lot of opportunity to really kind of network and immerse yourself in this industry if you want to. I know a lot of you guys are busy running your own properties. But you want somebody else to bring people in. This gives you the opportunity to invest those funds to do that type of stuff.
I've got a question. How many districts that maybe would be our size with, say, $300,000 a year to bring in, do they hire executive directors? Smaller?
Here's the thing, you guys get to decide that. So,
Have they done it? I mean,
yes, they have done that. So Fairfield has an executive director. They purposely up their assessment so they could add an extra staff person to go chase down conferences. So a lot of times people get afraid about paying staff, but in these cases, they actually wanted a full-time person to chase conferences. So this person is an employee that goes to all the events to actually find conferences to bring them into Fairfield. So depends, and that's the thing is they have a conference market, and they need that person talking to conference planners to bring them in about why Fairfield's so great. That's my recommendation is figure out what programs and services are important to you, and then backfill with whether it's staff or hiring a management company or an agency to do all the work for you. Do you have questions?
How do you connect with like vacation rentals, like VRBO? I mean, they pay TOT as well. They are supposed to.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I do too.
That's a very good question.
And they don't, a lot of them don't live here.
Yeah, and this is the same problem that we've seen with Airbnb, is that they're not collecting the assessment. So it's the county's responsibility to make sure that this is implemented appropriately. So if these properties are collecting the TOT, they need to be collecting the assessment revenue as well.
Yeah, the county routinely goes through VRBO and all these different things, and they look and see who's renting out properties, and they will call you. Because when I first bought my first vacation rental, and they saw a change of ownership, they called me immediately, and I said, well, I do know about it, because the owner that I bought from told me about it, but I wouldn't have known, but they called me right away.
Yeah, and the
Assuming
district.
they're still doing that, I don't know.
Yeah, and the district, you'll get typically, after the first quarter, you'll get a disbursement, which is typically just a big chunk of change. You likely won't know how much you got from each property. But if you have an executive director, program coordinator, maybe your treasurer on the board, sits down with the county just to make sure all the properties are collecting. If not, you can work with the county to deal with any delinquencies or any past due collections.
So then they're gonna be, so the county then is gonna send us another form in addition to the TOT
No,
form we
I say
already
it
have?
should be one form. So whatever form you have, there should be another line item, TIBD assessment. And it should be calculated in there with everything else. You should be able to write one check, and the county should be able to pull out that money for the assessment revenue and then provide that to the owners association.
But that's if you piggyback off of the countywide TOT,
Mhm.
if you decide to do different or pocket areas or include other things
Yeah, and
outside
that's
the county.
keep it simple. One form, you guys write one check, the money that goes for that gets allocated back to the organization.
Include restaurants, anything outside the ordinary is going to be different.
Yeah.
But basically, every lodging provider has to sign into it?
Only 50%. I shouldn't say only, because only is 50, half of everybody is actually kind of hard to get to. So yeah, it's a majority, I should say.
But once you get it going, do they all have to
Everybody
do it
pays
then?
it. Mhm.
So even if they disagree with it, but majority rules,
Correct.
they have to do it?
And I will tell you, upon formation, you're going to get some folks that are not happy with it.
Well, yeah.
Um,
There were people that didn't want to see the TOT increase when the county wanted to do it. so.
Yeah, and so what I'll tell you is whatever that percentage you get in formation, let's say it's, I wouldn't be surprised if it's easily over 50, 55, 60%. Would not be surprised if you renew the district in 5 years, that number significantly goes up. Mariposa, in their first renewal, they were almost at 90%. I mean, incredible.
Who's going to conduct the polling to see if there's 50% interest?
Typically, We ask, and I say we, Civitas, we ask the county for that information, they provide it to my firm, and I do the calculations behind the scene. And so I can say, we've collected 40% of petitions, we've collected 40, I can keep that percentage
The
going.
polling would have to be done before we contracted with you.
Nope, that illegal petitioning is done after we draft the management district plan.
So you'd have to contract with your company
Mhm.
before we ever know whether there's even 50% interest.
You got it. Because we gotta go through the process of doing all the outreach, talking to the lodging properties, what would the assessment look like, what type of services would provide, what term makes sense. And once we get everybody on the same page, then we draft that management district plan.
Well, it seems like we want to have a feel whether or not it's going to pass.
I understand what you're saying, but that's what we're doing now. I mean, this is my third presentation here in Plumas
Right.
County, and so far we've gotten really strong feedback that this makes sense. If we are going through that actual project phase, and at any point it's looking like maybe our top 10 properties, 10 biggest owners are like, this is the worst idea, I don't want to support it, we would stop the process right there, so that no more money would be invested or wasted in a program that wouldn't be successful.
Just so you know, a group of us have actually, who created this group of meetings, we were actually doing that ourselves. So after we get all these meetings, we are going to be contacting everybody again to try and see if we can get that vote ourselves so that we actually know where we're
Before
going.
we proceed. with
Yeah.
it.
And, that'll be, more of a straw poll, just kind of a general idea of, out of that 100 properties, we've got, good 40% of them that are really excited about this. But like I said earlier, I really think the sticking point's gonna get down to when we're sitting in that steering committee having meetings about what the assessment looks like. The sooner we get to consensus on that, is the sooner that we move forward with the process.
So you talked about the $42,000 startup. Is there any talk yet of where that would come from?
Yes, I think it's a combination of possibly money from the county. Feather River College might possibly be willing to invest, but there might be the possibility of actually coming to lodging properties and asking them to make a small investment with the agreement that once the district's formed, it would be returned. Our contract, so we break it up over the entire term of the project to 8 months. There's a flat dollar amount that whoever we contract knows what they're paying every month. And at any point in the process, our contract can be canceled, and that remaining amount of the contract that has not been completed is not due. It's just for the work that's been completed.
So who signs the contract? I mean, do you try to get an individual person?
Civitas wants to contract with one organization, and so formed a district down in Lompoc, and actually one of the lodging properties down there signed our contract. And he was kind of the chairperson, kind of pushed the thing through because it was important to him, so we contracted with him. Other districts, we contracted with the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber set up a separate checking account to kind of run the funnels through. It's ultimately what works for you guys.
Could we contract through Feather River College?
Yeah. We could contract with Lisa Kelly at Moons if we wanted to. I mean, that's who I originally gave the proposal to, because she's the one who I've been chatting with mostly for this. So we can decide on whatever works for you.
Have the Board of Supervisors and county seen this presentation, or have you had a conversation? So is that where the possibility of money is coming from?
The actual supervisors, all of them, know they've not seen it. A number of them have been to these. Lori Simpson has been to 2, I believe. Actually went to the county board of supervisors, said, what's the possibility of that? Came back and said, no.
Oh, so what's it
that they cannot help fund this?
Her straw poll was that they were not willing to, vote. But they have to find 40,000, they have to cut 40%.
But
So
$1
then it
million
goes-
or short on the budget or whatever it is right now.
Can't speak for the county.
So
I
the
don't know.
consult fee then would have to lie in the responsibility of the lodging providers or the colleges?
Yeah, Lori was willing to help to see, but it did not sound like that was a possibility, so, and I don't want to speak for her because I can't speak for the supervisors, but she has been there twice.
She was at one of our dinners and then one of our presentations as
Yeah,
well.
and there's been other supervisors, I just can't.
Terry Swafford was there.
Yeah, Terry Swafford was there, and so. Wasn't Kennedy there, he's.
So that 50% is each property that has any kind of TOT obligation has one vote?
No.
The
That
vote
is
is,
the
the vote is
percentage.
based on assessment.
Okay.
So if we do a
A big
percentage
property.
assessment, you'll find that the folks that have that charge for big, higher room rates and possibly more rooms, if you collect more than TOT, your percentage is gonna be a little bit higher, so you're gonna have a larger percent of the vote.
So obviously you have a big vote.
Yeah, you gotta pick that up,
Okay, let's just be real here, let's, your vote is bigger than mine.
You know, I just wonder if.
Is it like-
if it
But
was-
that helps though, like, so if we've got the bigger properties are on board, you
And
know,
that,
I mean,
that
small
comes down to that
properties,
internal straw poll that you take.
yeah.
Since we don't have the data of exactly what TOT questions are, it's kind of like, let's look at who the big properties are. You know, you guys have a pretty good feeling of who the bigger properties are, and if, you know, you've got a pretty good feedback from those top folks, you've got, you know, a very good sign that this could move forward. It's also very important for us as those bigger folks, they are invested in the process of seeing this through, you know, they want to see it happen, you guys agree upon the assessment. So we have those properties also involved in the steering committee conversations, that's important as well.
So I mean, we're so divided between eastern Plumas County really and the whole Lake Allen or Chester area. Is this been presented up
It
there?
has been presented to them. And we actually, I feel really positive about the meeting that we had in Chester this morning, because it was a small group of the room, but the majority of the room was like, if we're gonna do this, we need to be the whole county. We need to, and there's been, I guess there's a lot of history here, north versus south, which is not surprising, because it's in a lot of communities. But like, we can't be divided anymore. Whatever we've done in the past has been done. We need to think of this totally differently. And so that's why my recommendation is a new board of directors, a new organization, clean slate, that has representatives, and good representatives from both sides of the table. You know, for example, let's just say you got a board member representing Chester who quits coming to board meetings.
I'm the representative.
They have no representative. You need to get a board member on there that's actually representing. That's the same thing with this area. You guys gotta have a good board member, because that person needs to be at the table. Those committees we talked about, it might make sense to have micro-marketing committees that meet and just kind of talk about the needs, and maybe Chester isn't feeling like they're getting enough attention, or this area of Griegel isn't getting enough attention. Talk to the board about that and have them, you know, they're your allies in this. But if you're collecting the assessment, you absolutely have a say in how it's spent. So I would rethink what this district looks like compared to historic marketing in this area, and really start fresh.
So the percentage is only based on the formation.
Correct?
The operations is a one-to-one of the
The board.
board
You
members.
got it.
Of the board members. And then you guys help form kind of, I mean, because boards are different all over the place.
Yeah, you know,
I
the
mean,
nice thing
you have an executive board and then you have, you know.
So
a different
for
board.
us, the nice thing, so we, outside of our formation fees, we set up corporations for $3,500. The nice thing about hiring us is we've set up a lot of the corporations for the tourism improvement districts, so we can make recommendations on what works. But you know, just off the top of my head, you're probably looking at a board between 7 and 11 members, 3 years term, staggered. At that first meeting, we'll actually draw straws, figure out what the terms are. We probably write into the bylaws expiration limits. You miss 3 meetings, you could be excused from the board. Some of those kind of fail safes in there so that you get a strong group of people there. And I think the biggest thing in this area is going to have representation from all areas of the county, and that's what I would recommend writing into the bylaws.
How does the property management fit into that as opposed to the lodging facility?
Okay, so that petition I mentioned for you guys, legally on the petition it says authorized representative to sign the petition. So authorized representative, it's a self-affirming statement, and it differs on properties. In a lot of districts that we form, the general manager has authorized, it can be the authorized representative to sign the petition. Sometimes it has to be the owner. Sometimes for property managers, they are the authorized representative, so they could sign for those entire properties. I think it would make sense for this board to actually have a representative for the lodging, for the vacation rentals, whether it's a property manager that represents several of them, or maybe an individual like yourself that actually just owns property. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Do they need to get permission from the owners? Okay,
It-
property manager.
It depends what what their agreements are.
Well, is there a difference between a long-term property manager and a nightly property manager? There's, because a long-term is not a TOT collector.
It's every property is different, so you
It's
just have to look at that agreement. You know, everyone's different.
But isn't it they're TOT collectors? I mean, isn't it, if your property's not collecting TOT, then,
If your property's not collecting TOT, then probably.
I mean, if you're renting your house out monthly or, you know, year, that's not the
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah, that's different than you have that person that
Right.
comes every month to like change the towels and that kind of stuff. That's probably not the property manager we're talking about. I think we're talking about like the Coldwell banker that we met with this morning who represents several, I think 60 different vacation rentals.
Right.
Right.
That was my question.
Yeah,
Right, right.
depending on what their agreement is with their property owners, they could sign the petition and support. They could also represent their property owners on the board as well.
And they would have to contribute.
Yes?
So what I think what we should be doing is petitioning our board to put up 50% of this $42,000 if that's the number. You know, I've read documentation that says that the Board of Supervisors is supposed to be putting 1.5% towards promoting tourism, written down. And, you know, then it's like, oh no, you know, it doesn't really mean that, well, I've seen it. And, you know, they haven't done anything for years. So, you know, for them to come up with $21,000 is, I think, totally reasonable. I think that, you know, the rest of lodging providers could probably shoulder the burden. So I mean, I'll make some calls, I'll do some emails, but I think we should turn them around on that. Does anyone agree?
That was actually one of the earlier suggestions, was if this group was in favor of this and, you know, and the straw poll showed it, that if you marched in mass on board, say, hey, wait a minute, we have this, et cetera, we all win in the end.
We need collective
Take
bargaining.
on.
You know, we don't have, you know, we're all standing alone, and, you know, I mean, they haven't done jack for us in years,
Yeah.
and, you know, it's time that they step up, and this isn't too big of a nut to crack, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll tell you is that these districts have been successful in is once they're formed, you now have a unified voice for all of the lodging properties in the county. So if there are issues that come before the Board of Supervisors, let's say there's a TOT increase, let's say the county wants to push through a TOT increase, but the lodging partners don't want to support this, you guys can use your funds to advocate on behalf of this district. A lot of times we're going through this with Mariposa County right now. The board has voted not to outright go and not support the county because they see them as partners. But there's several lodging properties that don't want to support the TOT increase, and so this organization is kind of giving the infrastructure to kind of meet other property owners so that they can actively advocate for their interests.
Well, one of the, you know, Wendy, I mean, when you said lodging partners didn't support that 2% increase that they floated, and it was because that money would have gone into general fund.
Right, no,
Yes.
I totally,
I mean,
yeah, I totally agree as to that. I'm glad to see that didn't go through now.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
we can
That's
look
what
at this, because Plumas County, our visitor center has completely dissolved.
Right.
And no longer, and, you know, thank goodness for our chambers who've done a fantastic job in trying to, you know, keep that going. And other groups that have tried to pull together and, you know, make it something happen. But, you know, this would be nice to actually see something. I don't know if anyone else has noticed it, but when I started 11 years ago and I started paying attention to tourism in California and how things were mapped out, we're lumped with Shasta Cascades. That's how we're advertised, and we have nothing to do with the Shasta Cascades.
That's a half-day drive.
We're like 49, we're gold country, that's our history. And we're completely missed. It's so frustrating. Any lodge owner has probably had someone come and go, my gosh, I've toured all of California and I had no idea Plumas County existed. I mean, and they're 88 million years old. And you know, they have no idea. So it's mind blowing that our county is completely lost and people get here and go, oh my gosh.
They go, wow.
Wow, you're not in the, you know, it's beautiful. So,
But we need that collective, you know, marketing thing, and this would be, you know, a fund
Yeah.
that can actually make an impact, so.
So one thing I will tell you is if you do go to the county and ask for money, there's a good chance they're going to say, well, we want you guys to have skin in the game too.
That's why I said 50%.
So yeah, so as long as you guys are talking to other folks, the only thing I would red flag you is don't let the county, them giving you funds or not, halt you on this process. I've been talking with the folks in one city. So when we formed the Concord district, one of the cities outside, we sat down and they're like, I like the idea, but we want to have our own district. Fine, it's fine. Concord blasted through in 6 months. They already have billboards in the side of the road, and this other city is still dragging their feet about, we don't know what we're going to do, where's the money going to come from? Nothing will happen for a year if you'll let that paralyze you. So I like your idea of trying to get that, but also looking at the
Yeah, we'll have a
parameters too.
plan B, but, you know, I think that we should really put some political pressure on these guys.
Couldn't we also do, I mean, like you said, you could look at them and ask for a loan. I mean, first you could say, hey, can you fund the whole thing and we'll give you half back.
You could.
Or something like that, and we can offer it back. I mean,
We can't just withhold our next TOT payment and just say, we got
We
covered.
can't do that, that's right, that's
Go on a collective strike.
It's allocated somewhere else.
That would make the
That's
news.
happened.
But you know what, we don't charge for the, I mean, think about it, we take all that time to collect it. I don't know about anyone else, but it takes me a while to go through everything and make sure I have it done correctly. Golly gee, I don't get paid back on that time.
Or
I
we
don't
just say we
feel
lost
that
our
for my
check,
time.
you know.
And if I'm a day late, it's a huge penalty.
So one thing I will tell you, if you are supportive of this concept and you would be interested in serving on that steering committee, please let one of the organizers of this group know, because once we kick off this project, it's going to be building the database of all lodging properties, and then I'm going to kick off a meeting with the steering committee right away. This drive for me is 3 to 4 hours, which isn't terrible, but if I'm here, I probably want to be here for a trip 2 days at a time. So we can get a steering committee meeting and several outreach meetings done in 2 days. Let's try to do that. So think about that stuff. So because when we've been talking about this for what, a month, 2 months that I've been involved. Once you guys flip the switch after all the work you've taken to fundraise, I really look forward to kicking off and getting things started right away.
And being on the tourism council, once again, caveat, Feather River College does not have a, horse in this race. We funded all these educational presentations. At this point, now it's time to do kind of for the tourism council, whoever wants to kind of lead this, do we want to do this or not? And, I can't keep paying for her to come up to meet with every group until we sign the contract, then that's part of the contract, is the education outreach, so.
Well, we'll take care of lodging, if you need a place to stay.
I like that. Sounds great.
Do
Yeah,
you want
first time I was here, I stayed in
Do
Quincy.
you want
Last
to-
night I was at St.
Do you want to show them
Bernard.
the steak he has to beat from last night?
Oh yeah, Sharon at St. Bernard could eat this killer ribeye. Like she brought out the place. I was all, took a picture, put it on the internet. Competition. I like it. So again, thanks guys for coming. Be sure to sign in and grab copies of the handout so you have them.
Yeah, we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
Do you have a card?